everyone. Today we're going to talk about giants. No, not those kind of giants. A giant can be anything big in your life, something difficult or challenging that threatens to overwhelm you or destroy you. Those are the giants we're talking about today.
Like fear, sickness, doubt, family issues, loneliness. Don't be afraid of giants in your way. Trust God and watch your giants fall.
So join us today and learn how to defeat your giants. Today, we will learn how to face our personal giants, like fear or doubt, by looking at how one man faced a giant in his life, and that man is David. You might already know of David's encounter with a giant, but keep watching, because God always has something new to teach us through His Word. David was the youngest of 8 brothers, and his father's name was Jesse. David's 3 oldest brothers were soldiers in the army of King Saul. But David was a shepherd, often out in the field, tending his sheep.
Sheep, sheep, hey sheep, come over here, little sheep.
Most importantly, David had a heart for God. He loved God very much. At this time, the Philistine army, the enemies of the Israelites, had gathered near the valley of Elah. The Philistine army was on one hill, while the Israelite army was on the other hill. A champion named Goliath came out of the Philistine camp. He was 9 feet tall. He was a real giant. He had armor and carried a sword, a spear, and a javelin. He shouted to the Israelites a challenge. He wanted them to send out their best man to battle him. And if the Israelites won, the Philistines would serve them. But if the Philistines won, the Israelites would serve them. When the Israelites and the king heard this, they were dismayed and terrified. So for 40 days, Goliath stepped forward, but no Israelite was brave enough to fight him. 40 is often a number used to indicate that God is testing someone. Here, He's testing the Israelites, but they're failing their test. Where is their faith? They were allowing themselves to be overcome with fear instead of having faith. This time, Jesse, David's father, asked him to take food and bring it to his brothers in the valley of Elah. So David left home and went to the valley, just as Jesse asked. When David arrived, he saw both armies lining up, facing each other. Goliath stepped forward and presented his challenge, shouting his usual defiance. Then David saw all the Israelites run from Goliath in fear. David said,
"Who is this Philistine, that he should defy the armies of the living God?"
David's oldest brother Eliab heard David talking to the other soldiers and asking about Goliath. Eliab became angry with David and insulted him.
Why did his brother do that?
Maybe his brother was embarrassed because his brother wasn't brave enough to fight Goliath. David turned to someone else and continued talking about the matter of Goliath. King Saul heard about David's conversations and sent for him. David told the king that he would go and fight Goliath. David was concerned for God's honor. This Philistine was not only defying the Israelite armies, but he was defying the living God. But the king said that David wouldn't be able to battle Goliath. After all, David was only a boy, and Goliath was a trained soldier who has been fighting all his life. But David told Saul how God had helped him in the past. David was able to defeat both a lion and a bear when they took his sheep. David confidently said to the king,
The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine."
David believed that God would help him defeat this enemy. So King Saul told David to go and fight Goliath. Wow, what confidence David had!
He wasn't afraid of Goliath.
He put his confidence and trust in God. King Saul tried to put his own armor on David, but David wasn't used to it, so he took it off. David decided to enter the battle with his shepherd's staff, his slingshot, and 5 smooth stones from the stream. When Goliath approached David, he saw that he was only a boy. He hated him and threatened to kill David and feed his flesh to the birds. But this didn't scare David. David said,
"You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. The battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands."
Then Goliath moved to attack David, but David ran toward the battle line to meet him. He took out a stone, slung it, hitting Goliath in the forehead. Goliath fell face down on the ground, dead. David ran over, took Goliath's sword, and cut off his head. God had brought about the victory. When the Philistine army saw Goliath was dead, they turned and ran. Then the Israelite army chased them and defeated them in battle. Thanks to God, David had victory over the giant in his life. David shouldn't have been able to defeat Goliath. That giant was big. But what's impossible with man is possible with God. So what can we learn from David? Let's see.
David had a heart for God.
He was concerned for God's honor and reputation.
He had faith and confidence in God.
He relied on God's strength, not his own strength.
So what about you? Is your faith and confidence in God?
David didn't need to know Goliath's strength because he already knew God's. Let's pray for a moment that we would know that too. Dear God, please help each and every one of us to have the same faith and confidence in you that David had when we are facing our giants. So when you face your giants of fear, doubt, family problems, or whatever they may be, focus on God and your giants will fall.